Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and it's been a while since we talked about the Warhammer MMO that got announced, well, soft announcement last year, but information is popping up every now and then, very faintly. I don't feel like we're going to get a full announcement for another year, maybe even two, but I figured we should talk about it. For a little recap, everything that you see on screen right now is from a press release from May last year where they were announcing they're working on a Warhammer MMO. Jackalyptic Games is a subsidiary of NetEase, but they're going to be working fairly independently. And their lead is Jack Emmert, who you might know from Neverwinter Nights and so on. So, I mean, it's interesting. A lot of people are a bit confused because no context, no setting. Some people think it's 40k, some people think it's Age of Sigmar, and myself and some other people think it's going to be Old World. And there's a good reason to think it's Old World, but let's talk about the information that we do know right now. Their press release did state that they're going to bring it to PC and consoles, so it could end up being something more like the new action-based MMOs that we've been seeing lately, like New World and stuff. Personally, not really a big fan of that, but if it's going to be done well, it could actually end up being decent. Now, the company itself has been relatively silent since the announcement, but little bits of information are creeping up around different locations, so let's talk about that. A few weeks ago, someone posted that they were working on music and sound design for this specific title, unless there's another one being made by Jackalyptic Games, but I very much doubt it. So it does look like it's progressing well enough to either at this point be doing testing for sound design, or they're going to already start implementing sound to the game. We don't know how long they've been working on this title, by the way, because they kept very silent on their press release and stuff. So obviously this might be different to other studios, but I've worked with a bunch of studios for the terms of pre-releases and so on. Obviously this is more for release, but very early on, sound is not generally done. Like, this has been stuff for Total War. I've been very open and transparent about Total War when we get stuff very early, and yeah, there's just no sound for certain units and DLCs and other titles too. It just happens with loads of studios. Sound design is usually the last type of thing getting implemented. It's recorded kind of early on, but it generally isn't the most important thing. So what it could be here is just preparing sound and just going, okay, this is how I imagine this like an orc to sound like, right? Let's just use an example as an orc, because they need to get that stuff approved by Games Workshop, and that is a process in its own right. We all know how Games Workshop is very protective of their own IP. The company started off with a very small team, but it does seem to be growing. Keep in mind that this is just insights from LinkedIn, so yeah, it's not going to be a true representation. There could be more people, but yeah, you can see here it's growing. There's been a 13% headcount growth, which is fairly decent. I guess they are moving along quite well. And there's still no news regarding the setting. A lot of people are going, well, let's find out what Jack plays, but it turns out that he plays quite a few different settings. He plays Warhammer Fantasy, likely with Warhammer the Old World now. He plays 40k, Horus Heresy, and apparently has a small force of Age of Sigmar, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, it doesn't really give us a lot of information. However, a really interesting thing to note on their website is that they are looking for a senior animator. This is something which apparently has come up very recently on the LinkedIn. I'm not sure how long this job listing was on their normal website. I think people normally post it at the same time, but I'm not 100% too sure, mostly because LinkedIn has turned into crap. But yeah, so the listing goes as follows. Our animation team is looking for a passionate senior hand key animator to infuse energy and life into our player and enemy characters, focusing on melee combat. You will play a critical role in defining the look and feel of our gameplay experience. This is a hands-on position where you will push the limits of animation for melee combat. So it does look like melee combat is going to be a big thing. Obviously, it's very important to note that there is a decent amount of melee combat when it comes to the 40k setting and Horus Heresy, but a real big push to melee makes me think that this could be linked up to Warhammer the Old World. We've seen this developer work on loads and loads of titles before, but the majority of them were focused on Melee, DC Universe, City of Heroes, Neverwinter. There was Star Trek Online, which I did think had some guns and stuff, but I'm not 100% too sure. Most of my time playing MMOs, and still nowadays I'm playing World of Warcraft. I mean, War Within has been a fantastic expansion. So this is where I could be thinking, you know, setting-wise, it might be Warhammer the Old World or Age of Sigmar. More than likely Old World, because it's doing very well in terms of numbers, and obviously there'd be hype considered around like Total War and all that type of stuff, whereas Age of Sigmar, video game wise, historically lately has not been performing very well. So I don't know if they would like to take a gamble for that. It could end up being 40k too. Don't get me wrong, 40k would be kind of cool, but I prefer an MMO focusing around a fantasy setting because it does feel like it would be easier to produce. The requirements and responsibilities look fairly normal when it comes to this, just looking for certain experiences and just what they're going to be doing. In the nice to have section, there's quite a lot of information there, just strong understanding of UE4, so that would be Unreal Engine. It could end up being more action-based, which I guess would make sense if they're trying to do it for consoles. Experience with working with animation outsources, so stuff from outside. A lot of studios do this. I mean, even Total War does it for certain art and so on. Proficiency in creating realistic and stylized combat animations. All of them kind of fits for every possible setting. Experience with motion capture. That should be very interesting. I'm not sure how many MMOs actually do motion capture stuff. Experience in developing animations for a variety of character types, including humanoids, creatures, and bosses. That could fit in every setting, really. But it seems that there's going to be a big focus on a little bit of everything, which is good, because if it was like a Space Marine MMO, you'd want to see like different types of enemies and so on. And prior experience in a startup or new studio environment. That's because they're a new company. Finally, from an interview from last year, there was a little bit of talk here regarding the game most likely focusing on a PvE element, and yeah, that's a bit weird. Considering it's an MMO, it should have a little bit of everything. Again, World of Warcraft is something that I play a lot, and it's got PvE, PvE, and solo play now thanks to War Within, which is actually quite good. I'm very much enjoying that. But the message that we do have from the developers here, I've never emphasized PvP. God bless all the games that depend on it. I don't know how to do it. If I play a PvP game and lose several times in a row, I don't want to play anymore, right? Like getting your head beaten isn't necessarily fun, so you end up winnowing down your population. Clearly Overwatch has figured it out. Well, no, they haven't, because Overwatch is dead, but okay. But I don't have any burst of invention or ingenuity to figure out something new. PvP is not and will never be a focus of mine, probably for the rest of my career. So this is again why I'm kind of thinking Old World, because it's more like story-based and stuff. You could get it very similar to that of, the Star Wars Online MMO, which is pretty good. Knights of the Old Republic or something like that, right? That was decent. It's got a lot of focus on just questing. There is some PvP, but it's rather minimum. So it works for a fantasy setting for like Old World and so on. I don't know if it could work for 40k, and this is why I'm thinking it's going to be like Old World or something, because 40k would demand PvP, right? I don't think there would be a MMO showcase without like actual PvP, large-scale combat, and people would be cool with that, I guess, for 40k. That's pretty much all we know so far. I just wanted to do a little bit of a recap video because someone sent me that screenshot with regarding to the sound design stuff, and then I looked at the website. There was a senior animator post. There's an art outsource manager too, but that's more like, outsourcing work, which pretty much standard now in the industry. But yeah, it made me think about it. It makes me think that they might be doing well in terms of production. Hopefully it won't be too long till we hear something. I am still concerned, don't get me wrong, because obviously it is NetEase and yeah, NetEase, but Jackalyptic Games has been given a little bit of freedom for that. We're going to have to see how much freedom it is there. I hope it's not some monetization slop stuff. One thing I've always said when it comes to MMOs is cosmetics is fine for a cash shop and so on. Cosmetics is really, really good. Not player power, not like leveling boosts or experience boosts and stuff like that, because that stuff is just freaking awful and it makes me not want to play. Like, World of Warcraft does it well. Sure, there's a level boost thing, which I just ignore. I'll be honest with you, I completely ignore. But the rest of the shop is mostly just cosmetics, which is good. That stuff is fine. I mean, it's not really fine considering that stuff should be found in-game, but let's be honest here, Blizzard is a very greedy company, despite the fact that they've been doing so well lately. Microsoft has decided to prune them a little bit more, which again, Microsoft is a huge issue. Yeah, MMOs aren't in a good spot right now. My main thing is I'd prefer a fantasy title myself, but if we get a good 40k one, it's fine. I'm just worried because, we had that thing with Eternal Crusade, right? Nobody should forget that, where they promised the world and then stole everyone's money. So, yeah. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of discussion. I just wanted to talk about this today because it's been a while and, yeah, you know, some little bits of information is always cool to talk about. Have a nice day, everyone. I'll see you all again very, very soon.